Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into what is essentially a highly structured masterclass on systematic investment plans, or SIPs. We're going to strip away all the noise, ignore the random rumors, and reveal the absolute truth about SIPs using hard, historical market data from expert financial analysis. So if you're ready to look at the undeniable math behind real wealth creation, well, you're definitely in the right place. Let's get into it.
Now, if you've spent literally any time online looking for financial advice, you've probably seen just how crazy the polarization is. On one hand, you've got these super loud voices and articles claiming, don't do SIPs, they're a trap, they're going to destroy your money. And then, on the exact opposite side, you have seasoned experts insisting that SIPs are absolutely the right way to build wealth. I mean, it's incredibly confusing for a beginner trying to figure out whose advice to actually trust, right? Well, today, we're settling that debate. And we're not doing it with opinions, we're doing it with raw numbers. So here's our exact roadmap for today. First, SIP, truth or lie. Second, we'll cover the first golden rule of SIPs, which is commitment. Third, we're calculating real wealth by factoring in goals, inflation, and tax. Fourth, we'll look at the magic of the step-up SIP. And finally, how to choose the right funds. By the end of this, you're going to have a complete, actionable strategy. All right, Section 1, SIP, truth or lie, the data proof. Let's look at some actual undeniable data straight from the stock market to finally put this debate to rest. Just take a look at this massive number, 17.23%. According to the latest market data analyzed in our source, this was the one-year return for an SIP in the Nifty 50. Think about that. Even in a highly volatile market where we saw corrections and crashes, a simple, disciplined SIP still delivered really solid short-term gains. But, true wealth isn't built in a single year, so let's zoom out a bit. Over a 10-year period, the Nifty 50 SIP return sits at a phenomenal 14.80%. Let's put that into perspective for a second. Did these SIPs lose money over this long-term horizon? No, not at all. Did they beat inflation, which usually hovers around that 3 to 5% mark? Absolutely. Did they crush traditional fixed deposit returns of 6 to 7%? Yes, they literally doubled them. And honestly, the best part? Generating these CB-regulated returns didn't require any intense effort, backbreaking labor, or complex daily day trading from the investor. The historical data makes a pretty undeniable case for just how powerful SIPs really are. Okay, moving on to Section 2, commitment, SIP's first rule. Because knowing that SIPs work isn't quite enough. You actually have to know how to execute them without failing. Imagine a high earner for a second. Let's just call him SRK. So SRK brings in an income of 1 lakh rupees a month. His monthly expenses take up about 70,000, which leaves him with 30,000 in savings. Now, a classic rookie mistake would be taking that entire 30,000 and dumping it straight into an SIP. But remember, the golden rule is commitment. Out of that 30,000, only 20,000 is his strict commitment amount. This is the money that gets invested, rain or shine. Like whether the government changes or a global crisis hits, this 20,000 does not stop. That remaining 10,000? That just acts as a safety buffer for life's surprises. And why is this strict, unbreakable commitment so absolutely crucial? Because trust me, the market is going to test you. History shows us massive crashes. I mean, look at this 60% drop during the 2008 global financial crisis, or that terrifying 38% plummet during the 2020 COVID crash. During those moments, weak investors panic. They go in and stop their SIPs. But if you look at the timeline, despite those catastrophic falls, the market eventually surged back to new all-time highs, with the Sensex crossing the 80,000 mark. The system inherently rewards those who commit and never hit that pause button during a panic. Which brings us to Section 3, goals, inflation, and tax, the real math of wealth. This is where it gets interesting, because we're going to calculate the exact SIP amount you need for your real-life goals by factoring in 2 silent wealth killers, inflation and taxes. Let's say your goal is to fund a kid's medical degree about 10 years from now. Right now, you do your research and find out the degree costs 10 lakh rupees. A massive mistake people make is aiming their investments to hit exactly 10 lakhs. But using the logic of a CB inflation calculator and assuming a pretty realistic 5% annual inflation rate, that exact same degree is going to cost 16.29 lakh rupees in a decade. Inflation literally expands the finish line while you're right in the middle of running the race. So how do we actually hit that inflated target of 16.29 lakhs? Well, we reverse engineer the math. Step 1, You start an SIP of 8,000 rupees a month for 10 years, assuming a historical average return of around 12%. Step 2. Over a decade, your total investment value reaches 17.92 lakhs. Now, out of this, your actual invested capital is roughly 9.6 lakhs, which brings us to step 3. You're sitting on a really handsome gross profit of 8.32 lakh rupees. You might look at that 17.92 lakh total, see that it easily beats your 16.29 lakh goal, and think, awesome, I won. But if you stop the math here, you are making a fatal flaw. Because you absolutely have to account for the government share. Your pre-tax value is 17.92 lakhs. But you've got to apply the long-term capital gains, or LTCG tax, which currently sits at 12.5% on your profits. Taking 12.5% out of your 8.32 lakh profit deducts over 1 lakh rupees. So your actual, real-world, post-tax value drops down to 16.88 lakhs. This is exactly why you need a margin of safety. In this case, 16.88 lakhs still clears the 16.29 lakh goal, but just barely. If returns drop slightly, or say inflation jumps up to 6%, you suddenly fall short. You always have to plan for the tax bite.
All right, Section 4, the magic of Step-Up SIP, bridging the gap. Now we have to address an inevitable, super practical problem that trips up almost every single investor. What happens when your perfectly calculated goals require a 23,000 rupee monthly SIP, but your maximum commitment budget, like we discussed with our SRK example earlier, is only 20,000 rupees?
This is the ultimate dilemma for viewers whose current wallets just don't match their big long-term dreams. You run the math and you realize, okay, I need 2 cores in 20 years. That requires a 20,000 rupee SIP every single month. But you look at your bank account today and you can only afford to commit 10,000 rupees. So what do? Do you just give up? Not at all. This is where we bring in the perfect solution, the Step-Up SIP. It's honestly kind of magical. Instead of keeping your investment flat, you just commit to increasing it by a mere 10% every single year as your income hopefully grows. In year 1, you invest 10,000. In year 2, you step it up by 10% to 11,000. In year 3, another 10% brings it to 12,100. By using this automated, disciplined 10% annual increase for 20 years, that initial 10,000 rupees SIP powerfully compounds and successfully hits that massive 2 crore target. It completely bridges the gap between your present reality and your future goals. Okay, Section 5, how to choose right funds. Execution rules. So the framework is set, the math is completely done. Let's establish exactly how to select the right mutual funds as a beginner so you don't mess up the actual execution. The source material lays out some pretty strict golden rules for beginners to avoid getting burned. First, just stick to the basics: large, mid, and small cap funds. Second, avoid thematic or sector funds, things like infrastructure or purely tech, until you're a much more advanced investor. Third, and this is a big one, always ensure you're selecting direct funds. They're often marked as DIR. Do this instead of regular funds. Direct funds bypass those distributor commissions, which gives you a lower expense ratio and keeps a lot more money in your own pocket. And finally, prioritize funds with a robust 10-plus year track record. Let's look at exactly why that track record matters, using some publicly available data as an example. And just to be clear, this is not a recommendation. In the large cap space, a newer fund like White Oak started in 2022 and shows a really impressive 17.46% SIP return. But compare that to an older fund like Nippon India, which started way back in 2013, showing a 16.96% return. CB-registered analysts will almost always prioritize the older fund. Why? Because a fund that's only 2 or 3 years old simply hasn't been truly tested by long-term brutal market cycles. Reliability and a full decade of proven history will often trump a shiny new fund with a slightly higher but completely untested short-term return. Now, when you look at mid-cap funds with strong track records dating back to 2013, something else becomes pretty obvious. Top performers like Edelweiss, Invesco, and Baroda BNP, they all hover right around that 21 to 22% return mark. The critical takeaway here is to not suffer from analysis paralysis. Don't freeze up and delay starting your wealth-building journey just because you're stressing over a tiny 1% difference between top-tier historical funds. Honestly, the act of just starting is far more important than achieving absolute perfection from day one. So let's bring this whole thing together. The core takeaway from this explainer is that building wealth isn't a lottery ticket, and it definitely doesn't require a magic wand. SIP success really just requires 3 things: an unbreakable commitment to a realistic monthly amount, reverse engineering your math to actually count for inflation and tax margins, and executing with pure discipline by sticking to simple, proven, direct funds with long track records. It's just disciplined math and a margin of safety. That's the secret. I want to leave you with one final, kind of provocative thought to help you audit your own financial life. Take a look at your current portfolio today and ask yourself, are your current SIPs reverse engineered for a specific, calculated, real-life goal? Or are you just investing blindly and kind of hoping for the best? Think about it. If this explainer opened your eyes to the deep mechanics of SIPs, drop a comment below. Let us know if you want to explore a part 2 where we completely dismantle the biggest investing myths out there. Until next time, stay focused and keep learning.